Said I wasn't going to talk about it. I said it. It was 24 hours ago, and I said I was not going to talk about it anymore. I'm not going to talk about it. I wasn't going to talk about it. But now I'm going to talk about it. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys for another show to talk about Mesut Ozil. It doesn't stop, does it? I thought it was done. I thought this was over. I thought this was finished. But no, it is. It's never ending. It's never ending. He's not even in the squads, and we're sitting here and we're talking about him. And I know that we're going to get people in the comment box saying, "But you don't need to. You don't need to talk about him. He's out the squad. Why are we talking about him for?" But I said we would only talk about him if there was big news, and today there was big news. Now I am late to the show. To be fair, 10 o'clock at night in the UK because mainly, Patrick Vanford went and scored a hat trick after I took him out of my fantasy team. But anyway, we're not talking about it. We're not going to focus on that. Mesut Ozil's agent has come out and responded after he was let out of the Premier League team. So let's just go into that. Let's just read the comments first, and then we can have a chat about that. So here we go. Speaking exclusively to ESPN, So Gut, the agent of Mesut Ozil, said, "Arsenal fans deserve an honest explanation." Good start. Not Arteta saying, "I failed Ozil." You didn't fail Ozil. You failed to be fair, honest and transparent and treat someone with respect who has a contract and was loyal all the time. Every single person outside knows he hasn't treated him fairly. He didn't give him a chance to show himself this season. If he is still under contract, the player should have the option to stay and fight for his place. Mesut hasn't been given that. Why would you put a player on the bench twice for 90 minutes against Brighton and Crystal Palace in June if he wasn't fit or committed? Everyone says he's training well. Per Mertesacker said this publicly. "I spoke with at least 5 teammates who say he is training great. They say Mesut is one of their best players and they cannot understand why he is left out. So it can't be training. If it is not the pitch, what are the footballing reasons? If you talk, you should tell the truth that the Arsenal fans deserve. Otherwise, don't talk at all." Arsenal declined to comment when contacted by ESPN in light of both Arteta and Edu already stating the club insisted last month Ozil's omission was a performance issue, and those with longer-term memories would point to a series of peripheral performances in big games as well as his part-time role under Unai Emery, who later claimed in May the attitude that he adopted and the commitment levels, well, they weren't enough. So, there's your comments. What do we think? Well, first of all, what is the role of an agent? An agent gets the best situation for his client. An agent is supposed to give his client the best possible situation for their future. Now, it was made very, very clear to Mesut Ozil, not just before the start of this season, but before the start of this transfer window, that opportunities for him were not going to come easy, and that the way that he had been going, it was going to be very, very unlikely for him to receive minutes in the Arsenal team for the upcoming season. Now, as an agent, in my opinion, what he should be doing is then going out and getting his client the best possible option for him. However, that is pretty tricky when your client is on £350,000 per week maximum. Of course, that figure is down to a lot of appearance-based bonuses, performance-based bonuses, and loyalty bonuses, of course, as well, which Arsenal have now fought at £8 million, according to The Athletic. The issue with this situation is that I don't feel his agent has done a good job. If his agent had done a good job, he would be playing this season, or he would be elsewhere and playing. That is what his agent should have done. Instead of speaking in the media and trying to put the club down, I get that you're frustrated, but get the best deal for your client and get him moved on and get him playing somewhere else. Other than that, there is absolutely no need for you to come out and comment. The only reason why he is coming out and commenting now is because he's done a bad job, in my opinion. Why else would he do that? Why else would he come out and have to defend the situation if he'd have done a great job? If he'd have done everything he possibly could? Because if he had, Ozil would be playing this season. Now, Mikel Arteta is ultimately an employee as the manager of Arsenal Football Club, and therefore is going to say things in press conferences which protect the interests of the club. Very rarely do you see managers come out in press conferences and completely throw their club that they are an employee of under the bus. Now, I imagine that performance is not the only issue in regards to the reasons as to why Mesut Ozil may be currently not in the Arsenal setup. But obviously the appearance-based bonuses, which according to The Athletic are saving Arsenal around £35,000 per week, which if you put it into the context of a whole season, you're looking at easily a lot of money over the course of a season. Easily over £1 million being saved across a season. Now, Mesut Ozil has been inconsistent for Arsenal for a significant period of time. Mesut Ozil has gone significantly missing in some of Arsenal's biggest games. He's had some good performances, like Leicester at home, for instance, under Unai Emery. But since then, I can't pinpoint a performance in which I would have gone, my God, why on earth are we not putting Mesut Ozil in this team? And to be honest, we haven't seen too much of an uproar in regards to his omission since he was omitted from the Arsenal team. The only thing that we've been talking about is his absence. In all of the conversations that I've seen on social media or on punditry, it's been to do with his absence. Not in terms of what Arsenal are lacking without Mesut Ozil in the team. All the conversations are just around the fact that it's Mesut Ozil that is not in the team. And therefore that tells you that the right decision has been made. If the decision was Arsenal's goal creation is significantly lower without Ozil in the team, if Arsenal performances, win rate, goal creation, XG, whatever, was massively affected by Mesut Ozil not being in the team, that would be the discussion that was being going on. But that's not the case. That's not the case. Arsenal are not significantly worse without Ozil in the team. Arsenal may not even be worse without Mesut Ozil in the team. We lack some creativity in the middle. That is very, very clear to see. We lack creativity in general. However, what you have to remember is that Arsenal are currently playing in a 3-4-3 system most of the time under Arteta. The reason why we're playing in this 3-4-3 system is because Arsenal are defensively very vulnerable. We have centre-backs at the moment that can't play in a back two. Thankfully, with the arrival of Gabriel, we're starting to see that there's a real possibility that maybe we can play with a back two, with obviously a back four with the two fullbacks either side of those two. Well, I think personally, we still need to add that extra centre-back to be next to Gabriel to really solidify that. Could William Saliba be that guy? That's a different discussion. But the fact of the matter is that if Ozil was to play in this Arsenal team, there's only two positions that he could play in. He could either play on the wing, in which he did do under Arsene Wenger. He played in wide positions for Arsenal, and it wasn't particularly successful. Or he could play in one of the two central midfield positions. Now, if he was to play in one of the two central midfield positions, his defensive discipline would need to be sky high. Now, a very simple question: is Mesut Ozil the type to continuously, throughout a game, track back, make tackles, and get stuck in? If the answer to that question in your mind is yes, I would suggest that you need to go and watch a hell of a lot more of Mesut Ozil play, because he might run around the pitch a lot, but in the way that he's actually portraying his performance, the way he's actually putting those runs onto the pitch, it is not done in a defensive, disciplined way. In my opinion, Mesut Ozil has probably got more talent than most of the other players, if not all of them on the team, easily. He is the most able player, and I agree in what Jack Wilshere said, in terms of quality, he's probably the best player, just on raw talent. However, the application of that talent on a consistent basis just does not happen. It doesn't happen. And it doesn't certainly happen to equate to the amount of money that we have decided to pay. Now, that's not Ozil's fault, and we should say that. It's not Ozil's fault he's on that amount of money. He didn't create the contract. The club gave him that contract. But what is to be said about that is then it is down to the club how they then want to manage that player who is their employee at the end of the day. And so for that reason, if we want to save money by not playing a player that has not consistently played well for Arsenal over the last, since his contract has been signed, in fairness, I am completely okay with that. I'd love to get some of your comments in the chat. I'm not going to spend too long discussing it, but I will get some of your comments in the chat box now. So let's do that. Enrico says, watching Leeds in the Aston Villa game made me realise how awful we are. There's no patterns of play and just play boring sideways football. I don't necessarily agree with that at all. Matt Alexander says, this is an excellent, truthful and informative look at the Ozil situation. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Matt, for the very kind comment. Old School Gooner says, Ozil has chosen to stay. He don't want to go. That's why his agent is stirring the pot along with Ozil. The agent may not have done a bad job if Ozil don't want to go. And what I will say is that Mesut Ozil's Twitter feed has slightly annoyed me, because I have not seen the amount of commitment throughout the time he was supposedly training to be that integrated with the fans, to be trying to put polls out during the games when he's not playing. He's done it now because he's not in the Premier League squad. This isn't a positive thing. It's petulant. It's really petulant and really tactically timed for him to throw these comments in, because I didn't see those comments being thrown around before he was not included in the Premier League squad. Please feel free to go through and find me the amount of frequency of tweets during a game that we saw in the Rapid Vienna game. It was tactical. And for me, I'm someone that has gone on the record and defended Mesut Ozil several times and completely, I'm in awe of the talent that this guy has got. But he does not put it down on the pitch on a consistent basis. And he doesn't fit into the system that Arteta wanted to play to try and compensate from our defensive frailties. I can't wait for Arteta to be given a squad that has the defensive solidity that he needs in order to play some of the expansive football in a forward line. And we're starting to see that. With the integration of Gabriel, the integration of Thomas Partey, Arteta is beginning to be able to play a lot more expansive football. And I'm hoping that once we've switched to this back four with the midfield three, we might be able to see a lot more of the expression that Arteta can certainly give to this Arsenal team. He had to come in and take on an absolutely horrific job that Unai Emery had done, that had broken down barriers, broken down relationships, broken down bridges between players, the club, each other. There was discrepancies, there was a lack of communication, and Arteta had come in and solved those issues. And not only that, but he won a trophy in the process. And the people that continuously blast Arteta to calling him immature, calling him inexperienced, I'm sorry, but he's done an amazing job considering the situation that he took over in, considering the situations of certain players he's had to deal with, like Mesut Ozil. He's remained professional, he's remained calm, and he's got the best out of some of the players that ultimately were really struggling during their latter years at the club. And I'm continuing to see progress, continuing to see us be competitive in games against Manchester City, continuing to see us being more competitive in games against Liverpool. Yes, we didn't win those games, but we certainly were more competitive in those matches than we've been for a long time. Things don't flick in football like a switch. They don't just turn for us being a team that gets battered by Liverpool to beating Liverpool. It's a progression. It takes time. Look at the time it took for Jurgen Klopp to get that Liverpool side back into the Champions League initially and now up to winning titles. Because I guarantee you, if Jurgen Klopp was the manager of Arsenal, he wouldn't have been given the time of day having the first season that he had at Liverpool. No chance. Give Arteta the time, be patient, and allow him to do that instead of just wildly, embarrassingly criticising him for no baseless reason whatsoever. And that brings us quite nicely onto the next argument and the last thing we're going to talk about on today's show. And that is Emi Martinez and Bernd Leno. Now, I'm hoping that I don't have to cover this topic similar to the Ozil topic again after today, because, frankly, I find it really embarrassing. Frankly, to see people that I genuinely respect throwing out random accusations that Leno was the worst keeper. Leno is inferior to Emi Martinez. Emi Martinez is a great keeper. I'm not denying that at all. Emi Martinez did really good for us. He played 12 odd games for us at the end of last season, did really well. Had some fantastic performances against Liverpool at home. Had some really good performances against Man City away, or rather in the FA Cup semi-final. And he won a trophy at the end of it. And at the end of that season, we were in a position where both goalkeepers were fit again and were going to be competing for that number one spot. The difference is, in the situation, is that Arsenal in a transfer window where they didn't have much money to spend, Aston Villa come calling and say, we're going to give you 20 odd million with including add-ons for Emi Martinez. In a deal which a goalkeeper that was worth 10% of that figure just a year ago. To get offered near £20 million for a keeper that had remained mainly third choice at the club for 90% of his time here is a ridiculously good offer, a ridiculously good bit of business. There was no one in the summer that was going to come in for Bernd Leno. Would I have taken 30 million quid for Bernd Leno, or 25 million quid, or even 20 million pounds maybe for Bernd Leno if it meant that Emi Martinez was going to be the number one this season? Probably would have done. Not down to the fact that I didn't think Leno was capable of being Arsenal's number one keeper, but purely down to the fact that I know that Arsenal needed money this season in order to reinvest it to bring in players that we needed. It turned out in the end that Stan Kroenke and KSE had to invest into the club to bring in Thomas Partey. If Arsenal had not have got the money for Emi Martinez, if Arsenal were unable to sell any of their two goalkeepers, would we have forked out the money necessary to pay for Thomas Partey? We don't know. Ultimately, we don't know. But from the Kroenke's lack of commitment to spend in the past, if we'd have had to spend more than the £45 million, or probably less than that, because I'm assuming that some of that money was made up for by the money that came in for Emi Martinez, would we have gone out and signed Thomas Partey? In my opinion, I think there's a strong chance that maybe we wouldn't have been able to stretch that far to go and sign Thomas Partey. But without the money brought in from selling one of our goalkeepers, we may not have been able to bring, in my opinion, one of the best signings that we've made in the last decade. There is no promises that if Emi Martinez had stayed at the club, we still would have been able to go out and get Partey. Now, in my opinion, Bernd Leno is still a fantastic keeper. He's made mistakes, sure. In the game yesterday, everyone completely missed that David Luiz put the German goalkeeper under immense pressure. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't have just booted it up the other end of the pitch. He should have done. But again, he was put into a vulnerable situation. He didn't deal with it well under pressure. But Emi Martinez made mistakes as well for Aston Villa this season that fortunately for him, have kind of gone missed. There was an error against Fulham in which he parried it straight to the Fulham striker who scored. It was offside. But if that situation was onside, he completely would have cost his team there. He's conceded 3 goals to Bamford and Leeds this evening. He will make mistakes too. But because Leno is our keeper and Emi Martinez is now elsewhere, it's very, very easy for people to turn around and just blindly criticise the goalkeeper that, if I should remind you, won second place in Players of the Season last season and missed a significant portion of that season as well. Very quick to forget that. Similarly to how quick people are quick to forget Lacazette winning Player of the Season just a year prior to last year. It's amazing how quickly Arsenal fans can turn on the players. Quite frankly, I'm embarrassed by it. Quite frankly, as an Arsenal fan, it's embarrassing to see how quickly some of our fans do turn on our own players that pull on that red and white shirt week in, week out and try and fight for the 3 points for us every week. Bernd Leno is a good keeper. He was injured at the end of last season. It was unlikely anyone was going to come in for him. It was unlikely anyone was going to pay the fee that Arsenal would have wanted, having spent between 20 and 25 million pounds on him when he arrived. And so therefore, when a club comes in for Emi Martinez and puts up 20 million quid, which in my opinion is 10 times worth the value that he was worth a year prior, you can't turn down that money. Especially when we desperately needed financial boosts to get us the players that we needed this summer. I'm staggered by some of the things that I've seen and the reactionary response to the things that I've seen on social media over the last couple of days. It's a real frustration for me. I'm really hoping that we no longer have to see this type of reactionary thing. So if you're watching this, which I doubt, to be honest, very many people who disagree with me on this topic will, because unfortunately what a lot of people I find do is they just click off things as soon as they see something they don't agree with. But I implore you, please, if you do disagree with me, tell me. Write in a comment section below something well written, something well thought out and with evidence that disagrees with me. You don't need to slag me off in the comments. If you disagree with something that I've said, please feel free to comment with a full explanation as to why I am wrong. And I will listen to you and I'll read your comment and I'll respond to it. I don't respond to abuse because it's just pointless. I don't respond to sarcasm. I don't respond to laughing emojis, for instance. It's immature. It's weird. If you want to disagree with me, that's fine. Just throw it in the comment section and I will read through your comments tomorrow morning and I will try and get back to as many of you as possible if you disagree with me on Leno, Martinez or Ozil. That's fine. This is an open forum at the end of the day. This is all here for you to have a discussion. I'm sorry I haven't been able to get involved with the live chat too much today. I just wanted to get a few things off my chest personally to the point where my throat is so dry, I'm going to have to take a sip of this water and then I'm going to read through some of your comments and then we're going to wrap up. So, Aussie Gooner says, at the end of the day, Martinez was an easier player to sell due to his low wages. Leno is our player now, not Martinez, so let's back him and move on. Fantastically summed up, mate. Real Janice says, I disagree, Tom. Runnison is better than all of them. I think that. Ezra says, Tom, how do you feel about Runnison? I'm absolutely fine with Runnison coming in because, and I'll tell you for why, he cost us barely anything. If we'd have spent, what I would have been really annoyed is if we'd have gone out and spent 10 to 15 million pounds on David Raya, which would have effectively nullified any of the money that was brought in for Emi Martinez. It would have been silly. It would have been a joke. Why do that? Why reinvest all the money that you've just made on a keeper that was worth a tenth of the price that you've just sold him for by bringing in David Raya? So to bring in Runnison, and then the thing is with goalkeepers is you don't need to rotate them. You don't need to. Goalkeepers, fitness-wise, you don't need to rotate goalkeepers. That's why Leno's playing in the Europa League. That's why Leno's played in the League Cup. You don't need to rotate them. It's not a fitness issue. Yes, there's a risk that they could get injured. As with any player ever, there's always a chance. But to spend £1.5 million on a keeper that's done okay at Dijon, that's an international keeper with Iceland, I think that's good business because he doesn't have to play. He can just sit on the bench for all I care. If he came in and did really well, great. But if Leno gets injured, as Ole Gunnar said, you might say that we're in the mud. Now, we wouldn't sign a keeper without any recommendation. And we did sign a keeper with a recommendation of Iñaki Kena, who is, of course, our brand new goalkeeping coach from Brentford. And you've got to trust the guy and think that he's worked with this guy before. He's given his recommendation. He's going to know him a lot better than me and you and Joe next door. Like, we're not going to know anywhere near as much about him as this guy. Before we move on, just want to say thank you ever so much for Victor Edwards for signing up as a new member. You've joined an amazing group of people, mate. We've got some fantastic exclusive content coming out over the next week or so as we get towards the end of October. How mad is it? We're already at the end of 2020. It's crazy. End of October is just around the corner. Birthday month next month, which I'm looking forward to, in lockdown-ish, kind of lockdown-ish, rule of 6 and all that, tier 2, tier 1, where I am. So yeah, but thank you so much, Victor, and I hope you enjoyed the exclusive content, and make sure you join our Discord server and get involved with the chat. It's very vocal over there at the moment. Christopher Fung says, less than 2 days before a match and we're talking about 2 players who are not, or are basically not, at the club anymore. Isn't it mad, Chris? Isn't it mad? It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Daniel Roberts says, do you see Leno as the long-term keeper? I like Meslier from Leeds, young French keeper at Leeds. I like him as well. You know what? I really liked Leno when he was at Bayer Leverkusen, and now we've got him. So I see he's a young keeper still. He's mid to late 20s now. And if no one else comes in for him, the only one I worry about really is maybe a Bayern or a Dortmund possibly coming in for him later on. I don't see why not. He's only going to improve. He's only going to get better. But the thing is, we've got to support him instead of really continuously, like Arsenal fans love of them, put their players down, which really, really sucks. Really sucks. JD says we need to get rid of Ozil, Leno, Mustafi, Bellerin. Bellerin's interesting. Had a fantastic game the other day. Deserves credit. Socrates, Cedric, Kolasinac, Chambers, Holding, again, been fantastic. Xhaka, been fantastic. Mainsley, been fantastic. Ceballos, been fantastic. JD, I think you need to take a second look at some of those players, mate. Matt Alexander says, Ings for Lacazette, just an idea. Proven in the league. Hate that some players I look down on just because the club that they're at. I agree with you on the second point, Matt. I think a lot of players are looked down upon just because of the club that they play for. Remember the whole thing when we were linked to Johnny Evans? We could have got him for 10 million quid. He would have come in and been a very, very, in my opinion, solid defender for us. Imagine Johnny Evans playing next to Gabriel right now. That would have been a really decent, solid pair for me. It really would have been a solid pair. Eventually you replace Evans, but for 10 million quid, he was better than the players that we had. He was better than Luiz, better than Mustafi, better than Socrates, better than anyone we had at the club. And yet people scoffed at the idea of Johnny Evans for 10 million quid. Looks silly now, but I completely agree with you. Ings for Lacazette, I think, is a bit of a tricky one. He's looking like he's going to sign a new deal at Southampton, which would put him on a bit of extra money. It would cost quite a bit of money as well, especially if he's considering signing a new deal. It would be a bit expensive, Matt, but I completely get where you're coming from, 100%. Antonio, Tom, honestly, Cedric plays trash football. I'm worried. I support him, but should we be looking at a better right-back option next summer? Now, people look at the channel and often I'm very optimistic. I'm very praising. I'm very positive about a lot of our players. But I do take a bit of an exception with Cedric. Cedric's signing really confuses me. I don't really know why we did that. We've got, as I've said before, Bellerin, Mainsley, and Osei Tutu at the club. Osei Tutu is a young guy at Cardiff on loan this season, very highly rated, very highly thought of, had a really good season in Germany with Bochum last season. I don't really know why we did that. Kia influence, there's that. So, you know. Malhotra says, Pepe Opinion now. Pepe Opinion, jury's still out, isn't it? Jury's still out over a year later. That's concerning for me. It worries me. I hope he gets things turned around very soon. I feel like if we have that number 10, that creative midfielder in behind the striker, he can be a bit better. I feel like he would really help with that. Having that 3-4-3, I don't think it supports Pepe in the right way. So I'd like to see what we could do with him. Ozzy Guna says, hey Tom, would you switch to a back four when Mustafi is ready? Great question. Yes, I would. I think Mustafi is much more capable of playing in a back four compared to David Luiz. Yes, I would. 100%, mate. I 100% would do that. Rodney says, I get why we signed Cedric because we thought Mainsley was going, but I hate watching Cedric play so much. You know, it's just a weird one, isn't it, with Cedric? It's really kind of hard to think about. Ezra says, do you think that Laka could go in January? And how do you feel about Nketiah? I don't think he'll go in January personally. How do I feel about Nketiah? If Johnny Boy is watching, 305 Johnny, if people saw the picture that I put up on Twitter today, in fact, let's get it up on the screen. The only reason for why is that I've seen some really funny people, quite a few, and not just John, in fairness, have sent me pictures of the the picture that I put up on Twitter, which is, let me just share it. Here we go. You should be able to see it now. Well, it's just me going, went out, tried to find some reasons as to why anyone wouldn't be happy with the job Arteta has done. Didn't find any. It's a very nice day out. I only get one day off a week now with my new job. And this is what I did, spending it with today. If anyone would like to take this picture and turn it into a bit of a meme with some text on it and send it to me, I've received some really funny ones. So John's one today was, Tom's gone out trying to think, and he's just thinking about Nketiah, was what it said. Just thinking about Eddie Nketiah. And I thought it was fantastic. So if anyone would like to get their Photoshop skills out, just nothing dodgy, all right? Other than that, I've had some great ones sent to me. So you guys are creative as hell, I have to say. That is going to round off today's show. I've gone on a little bit longer than I was intending to this evening. Apologies for the late show. It's been a pleasure to speak to you as it always is. I genuinely hope there's people when you watch this. I'm an opinionated guy. I get that. If you want to disagree with what I'm saying, feel free to throw a comment in the comment section below. Just make it respectful. Explain your thoughts, explain your comments, explain what you think in a nice, respectful and mature way, and I will respond to it. If there's any abuse, I just delete them. It's just pointless. I'm not in for any. The biggest advice I could give to any of you is that anyone ever just wants to put you down, make you feel like the worst person in the world, just get rid of them. Just get rid of it. There's no need for it. People are allowed to disagree with me all you like. If you want to say something that's in disagreement to what I want to say, I'm all up for that. I love people disagree. It makes these shows better when we have disagreements. It really does. Tomorrow, preview show for the Leicester match will be out in the afternoon at some point after I finish my shift. As speaking of which, keep your eyes over at 101 tomorrow for all the articles that will be coming out from myself. And I'll give a little plug to the boy, Owen Young. He's starting his own podcast over at Guna Crack. It's fantastic. That's CRAIC. Check it out. He's a top guy and you should go and listen to his podcast. Mike Hernandez, as well as another expert member, runs his own podcast. Danny the GFP at Burkout Wonderland. Go check those guys out. Mike and Andy at the Gooners Pod. Make sure you go check them out and give them some love. Go check out Lee's pods. Go check out everyone's pods. There's plenty of Arsenal content out there for you to enjoy, and you should, because it's all typically, not nearly, 99%. Really, really good stuff. It's been a pleasure to speak to you guys, as it always is. I will speak to you again very, very soon. Thank you to our members, as always, for being absolute legends. I still need to update those pages, so apologies for those that I've not mentioned there yet. And thank you to Victor, who, of course, signed up today. Other than that, it's been a pleasure. If you want to hit us up on the Twitter, at the Gooner Talk TV, always open to DMs. DMs are always open up for a chat, always, if I've got time. So, yeah, if you remember, you can join up to the Discord server and get some really great exclusive content. Love speaking to you as always. It's been a pleasure. And as always, up the Arsenal.